Welcome to Spiritual Soul Podcast. Today I have with me DAMLA, who is an inner child, energetic wound healer, an inner child intuitive reader and astrologer, crystal healing teacher, and soul healing writer, and so much more. So her business is beautifully named A Drop of which I love so much. I just get this impression straight away from that name of, I get in my mind's eye the picture of a droplet of going into a pond and the ripple effects. And I know it has so many meanings for you and so on, but that's just how I receive it. And then it's like that droplet is a microcosm of the macrocosm, and it has ripple effects. And that's how energy healing or doing this kind of spiritual work, and when you're in the vibration, it's like that because there's a resonance, and you just never know how far and wide that energy goes and the healing goes and the impact goes from the work that you do. You also have a podcast called Conversation with Healers and various other offerings on your website too, outside of those services, such as beautiful daily practice journals, and you have a Chakra Bliss Vault Crystal Healing membership. But when you get down to it, you help self-healers and healers move beyond their energetic wounds of their inner children, which I love because it's a plural, so that made me laugh, and shine brighter than they thought possible so they can fully show up in their lives to heal themselves, their families, and their soul community. And even just that, it just shows when we're doing this work, it's not just about yourself and what you want to do because you feel that calling. It's the person and then how that impacts them, and it just goes on and on from there in those ripple effects. So first I want to say, when we're first doing energy healing work, and I know you've got your own sort of origin story, it's like you don't really know exactly what you're doing, right? You learn the techniques or whatever, and you go ahead and you do the thing, but also just defining what you do and really having an understanding of what you do, like what I just read out about the sort of the impact over time as we do this work. All of a sudden you sort of come into your own and you have this sense of who you are and what you do. And then it's like, instead of saying, oh, I'm an energy healer or whatever, you have this understanding of, I help people X, Y, Z. So I just wondered if you could talk about how you came into your own in that way, and kind of your own realizations of what it is you're really doing and what you're really here to do on a soul level.
Yes. So it's interesting what you're bringing up, because in essence, all the things that I do today, inner child healing, teaching people about crystal healing, and the writing that I do, I didn't get trained in them. In a way, they were thrust upon me. And then in a way, all my life has been a training, of course, and all the rest of it. The crystal healing was something I just leaned into as a new mom. Inner child healing similarly sort of rose up from that when I start to ask questions like, okay, I came to understand that we are all crystals. And then the question was, what is there then in our crystalline body? What is in between the spaces? And the answer came out to be the inner children. But to answer your question, I remember this time my daughter was about 2. I am from Turkey originally. That's where I grew up. We were in Turkey. I remember swimming in the sea. And I was distinctly asking this question of, okay, what is it that you want me to do? Life, source, divine. And I kept hearing over and over and over, healing energetic wounds. Healing energetic wounds. And I kept hearing, and this is actually something I haven't shared before, I heard you're a healer for healers. That's what I kept hearing. And the precursor to that was I had this pretty traumatic giving birth experience through an emergency C-section. it happened through circumstances where I actually pushed away my intuition. And after that, it wasn't, first of all, it got just stronger. I knew I always was intuitive, but being and becoming a mom, as I'm sure you know, just made it stronger. And the decision point was, okay, I will listen every single thing. I remember driving one day right after that, and I kept hearing, close the window, close the window. So I closed the window of my car. Um, and then I was like, I'll just go halfway. I left it half open. I'm like, I don't understand this. And I stopped at a stop sign, and there were sprinklers right next to me. And the sprinklers just went hitting my face. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I will listen. So in another way to put this is finding myself as a healer has been a lot of searching, a lot of doing. I'm in the process of updating my website, and I look back and I'm like, oh, did I do that? Like, I have created all these programs. Some of them worked, some of them I just shelved, and I'm like, it hasn't been this instant of like, I heard that, you're going to be a healer for healers, or like you're going to heal energetic wounds, and then boom, it was, it's been this last I would say 15 plus years of constant self-healing, healing, growing as a healer, growing as an online business provider. And throughout and in between, there has definitely been what you're talking about, which is I think there comes a point of understanding and accepting of the task, of the calling, and you, for me at least, I started to purposefully put myself in positions and places and design my life in a way that I could hear better and I could act on what I hear better and better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, over time it's the development and it just sort of comes through and happens. I do recall reading on your website also that you sort of mentioned that in your work you kind of just you turn up and it's not that you're following a set procedure, XYZ, kind of like as the Reiki is when you're doing the traditional Reiki. You move sort of from that and just allow yourself to be in the space. Is that how it sort of is for you?
Well, it's so different with every person.
Yeah.
Yes, it is like that. Yes, that is intentionally that way.
Mm.
But right now, I'm clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, cognizant. So it's like I sit down and I open myself. Um, and then whatever wants to come through comes through in a way that is liberating, because I'm not following a pre-made script. I'm simply tuning into you and your needs and what wants to happen in that moment. Trying to think, like, I don't think I've ever really done it the other way. I've
Mm.
been like, I'm an Aquarius and kind of a free spirit, so kind of want to do things weirdly and differently every time. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if that was like a conscious decision, or it's more just that's how I am.
Like just an evolution of who you are over time through the work you do, because it brings up things. And what percentage of clients do you think have energetic wounds and inner child stuff? Are they the same, different? Could you clarify between the two?
So that goes back to this dream I had a couple years ago, which informs my work. So I'm in the dream, I am in Egypt. I am standing by the Great Pyramid, and it's nighttime. And I look up in the sky and I see like millions and millions of stars. I'm just awe. I remember feeling this awe, and I keep saying, like, look at the stars. I mean, they're beautiful. Look at how bright they're shining. And then there are some people passing me by, and some of them, and I'm like, look, look. And some of them stop and look with me, and some of them just passed me by. I woke up knowing I was looking at the quantum inner potentials of the inner children that live in us. What is an inner child? It's you in a particular moment in time, past, parallel, future times, as well as the use of your ancestors' past, parallel, future timelines that continue to live in you. All these moments, because time isn't linear, they all live in you in your quantum field, in between your seemingly three-dimensional structures, which the pyramid was representing. And I came to understand that in the dream also, like there were some clouds. The clouds are the wounding, the trauma. Whatever happens to you leaves a mark. But it became very clear to me, like whatever happens to you, whatever trauma, that inner potential, that light spark of that particular moment, which is the light spark, the light potential of your inner child in that moment. Let's say at 5 years of age, you experience something which I would call the cloud that would leave a mark in your nervous system, in your physicality, in your emotional body. But that spark does not get broken, does not get lost, is not wounded, and it's just hiding. It's just hiding underneath the clouds, underneath the trauma or the energetic wounds.
Mm. A lot of people don't understand just how much things that are happening in their life are playing out based on these wounds and triggers, and just how far interconnected everything is. And you mentioned the quantum, and that's a really massive topic area and something I just love. Could you define that for anybody that's listening that maybe doesn't really understand what quantum means, and then sort of in the context of what we're talking about?
Absolutely. So you actually touched upon it when you talked about a drop of So we seem solid. We are made up of molecules, cells, and underneath that there are electrons, protons, neutrons, and underneath that there are subatomic particles, and underneath that there are quarks. And then underneath that, what current physics assumes or theorizes is the which is the string theory. We are strings of light that vibrate and come in and out of existence in a probability cloud. In the yogic tradition, they call the sound of that vibration Om, which is a seed sound, undescribable, which is the commonality between you, me, that's this desk, and everything in the seeable multiverse. That sound of Om, that vibration, means that we're all one underneath everything. It also means, though, you are a unique vibrational essence created particularly as a focused energy beam in this particular body. So you are a drop of Om. So the drop is the container of your body, who lives in a sea of Om, who lives in a sea of vibration. What that means is that everything in you comes in and out of existence. If you were a solid body and I told you, Natalia, you have this wound, which is never going to get better, and you believed me, or when I told you, like, in order for it to get better, there needs to be something physical done to, and sometimes that's the case, great. But, if I told you that, things will only work in a certain way in this physical reality, and you believe that, that's how it is for you. But we are luckily living in times where science and spirituality comes together and we begin to understand that we're so much more than that. If you're a probability cloud that comes in and out of existence, you can choose to live in the cloud of the trauma, or you can choose to bring the inner light potential of the inner child to life. Versus if I told you you're just the trauma, that's a different way of looking at it. Like you were hurt and you're going to always stay hurt. But that's not the case. You are a probability cloud. A probability cloud means, yes, there might be higher chance for you through your experiences of seeing and identifying with that wound. But even if there's like 1% or less than a 1% chance of you seeing and being that light spark, I'll take it. And in a lot of cases, it's like a 50-50 that I see. So 50-50 means you have a choice. You have a choice. You can act on how you want to live your life. Do we all have energetic wounds? 100% of us, yes. Because we don't only have personal wounds, we have species wounds, we have ancestral wounds, we have wounds that come across through past lives, parallel and future lives. Even if you had the most perfect childhood, even if you have the most, amazing financial health, wealth, relationships, everything, there are going to be things for you to look at and be with, and there are chances of bringing out that inner child light spark here in this life for every single one of us.
I find it really interesting that you put together the words inner child light spark. I have a sense of what each one is, and when you put them together, can you explain what you mean by that?
I explain it by saying this body is the inner night sky. That's what I was seeing in my dream. Because if you think about it, underneath the skin is unknown. Underneath the skin is the underworld in the original old myths, like the myth of Inanna, the myth of Persephone. Underneath the skin is where our subconscious lives, as well as our purest and most intense and most beautiful light sparks and potentials. So, and underneath the skin is scary. Underneath the skin, going into that underworld is hard. It's not easy. And in that night sky, there are certain things you can access by yourself, and then there are certain things that are easier to access and to be with when you get help from a healer like me. Because it's such a out there concept for us to think of our bodies as a mythical, archetypal, not just as physical realm. We're not taught these abilities or ways of thinking that let you connect with that, because that realm requires mythical thinking. That realm requires being in a dreamlike state, talking to the inner children, giving them toys, interacting with them with symbols and sounds and smells and touch. And entering into this world is it's a wonderful world. It's a wondrous world, but it's also very, very scary. And I completely forgot your original question. So tell me if I,
It's
if
okay. I did remember. No, I've forgotten too. It's all good. It's all good. I mean, yeah, that it's such a powerful topic, like both inner child healing, wound healing, energetic wounds. I just find it comes up in almost every session as well. And when I've gone to do inner child healing work, which has just come up organically in the session, I I can't believe just how powerful it is. And sometimes it can be the most simplest thing. You do a little practice or meditation or energy work, however it sort of manifests at the time during the session. It's incredibly powerful and at times deeply emotional, deeply resonating. And I feel that with the client, they really go into their inner selves, their inner child so easily and seamlessly. It's quite amazing just how the process works. And whereas some might feel like, oh, that sounds a bit dumb, like pretending that you're seven or something, or going back to when you're seven and imagining it, or whatever the process is. But it's so incredibly powerful. The actual effects of it are far reaching because a lot of things like that people are experiencing now have a link or a connection to something from before. And that's often what becomes unearthed in a healing session because sometimes they might be thinking they're coming for XYZ, but what comes through is something deep from, long ago. That's the core. And you want to get to the core often when it comes especially to the bigger stuff.
Yeah, I mean, your body knows. I don't assume, like, if someone
Mm.
comes to me and they specifically want to explore like a 5-year-old self, that's great. But my process is I leave it up to the intelligence of the body and their system to guide that. And sometimes we don't even need to know how old the child is that we're connecting with because they will let us know, or they might give us a range of age. Or in the extreme cases of people having had a lot of trauma, we may not be able to see a child, but they're just so hidden. All of this to say, like, people occasionally, when they see inner child healing, and when they see that's what I do, they assume it's going to be this like long and arduous process. We're going to bring up all the wounds and
Yeah.
no, that's not how it is, because I'm not interested in you reliving that story. I'm interested in you feeling into it. So I don't need to know your story. We don't often bring it up at all, because when you bring up the sensations in your body, that is the story. So when you tell me something like, Damla, I'm feeling this huge weight in my right shoulder, I'm like, okay, that's where we're going to go today. And we start there and we feel into it together. I'm guided to ask certain questions that help make the process easier, smoother. And it ends up being joyful. Like, people end up, the things that the inner children show them. I have people like giggling in the middle of the session, and you can see like how they change. Or sometimes people look up and they see this painting they had hanging forever in their rooms, and they realize, oh, that was the inner child that put it up there as a reminder. They were trying to remember or remind them of what they love. So there are all sorts of ways and, combinations of how a session might go. But in essence, it's not really about rehashing the trauma. It's about connecting with that inner spark that really is longing, waiting, asking, and really hoping for you to connect with it.
How the person comes out and that joy that you mentioned, that's what it's all about. Because as you say, it's not like let's go and dig up all your dark, worst, stuff that you've got buried deep inside you, although sometimes that's needed. It's about bringing you back into your own essence of who you truly are, that spark, that drop of the light essence, and re-sparking it, because often our lights become so dim by the dark clouds that you mentioned, the stuff, the wounding, and we reach a point where sometimes we can't see that light or even know it's there, or it's just, dimming a bit lower. And so by going through these processes, which a lot of different kinds of energy healing, but in specific today, talking more about energetic wounding, inner child healing, it brings back that spark of joy, and then that immediately lights up the light. And that's the light you were talking about previously. And you were speaking of the quantum earlier. So in that quantum, in this sort of inner child healing or energy work on the inner child level. So for example, let's say we're going back to the age of 5. It's all happening in the quantum in all directions of time and space, because that healing that you do from when they were 5 is effectual for them at present, and in what some people might call parallel dimensions or past lives, future lives, all directions. I wanted to ask also about your own inner child healing. What has come up for you that you're happy to share about from your own personal story?
Yeah. Anger, abandonment, sabotage, So those are the clouds. Okay, those are the clouds. And those are things that manifest in my life. And I do a lot of this work alone, and then I get help. I get help too. Um, but all of this to say, like, because I am intuitive, I tune in and I'm like, what's present? What's here today? And then there are certain things I can be with and I can heal myself. And I actually have a beautiful and powerful inner child meditation that's available for free on my website. We can talk about it later. Um, it's an ongoing process, right? It's an ongoing process. I always say one aspect of this kind of work is whether you do it in person, whether you do it partnering with someone else, it's going to be an unraveling. So once you find a safe space, once you create that safety within you, if you're able to, if you're trained enough to do that, and once you connect with that one inner child, all of a sudden the others are like, wait, what? Like I can bring up stuff. She's gonna look, she's gonna hold me safe, like she's gonna listen. So that's what's happening with me now is as I listen more, more stuff is coming up. And not in a bad way, in a okay, let's see what's here. Let's see what's here today. Um, and my mantra that I keep coming back to is, okay, how can I be with this? Can I be with this? I can be with this. May I be with this? So yeah, that's where I'm at.
It never ceased to amaze me how much we carry wounding, even as we grow into our older years, having clients that are 70, 80, still having parent issues, inner child healing issues. And it's a long journey. And I think that, like you said, just being kind and gentle to yourself and really just nurturing and honoring the process, that it does and can take time, and it comes in and out like waves. And there are various themes and threads that kind of can interlink through. You mentioned anger, abandonment, like that's come up for me this year as well, especially abandonment's one of my big ones too. And found it interesting because I didn't always have the anger one come up, but it did, so it just shows how there's layers and that it changes over time as well. Because even if you do some really big healing on it, sometimes like a lot of clients say, a lot of people in the spiritual field, you would have heard as well, say, when does it ever end? Like I thought I'd healed that, or I went to a healer that time and I thought that's it and I can walk out and be, like perfect now. But it doesn't happen that way. Like it keeps rolling along, doesn't it?
You're going in a spiral. So every time you do a little bit of healing, you're going to hit the same cloud, but you'll hit it from a different point of view, and then a different one and a different one. And then if you work with a client, let's say you work with a healer, you'll start it here and then you'll jump up here. So the next spiral may not hit that hard. And it's an opportunity, right? It's not an issue. It's an opportunity when these things come up. Let's take abandonment, for instance. You mentioned anger and abandonment like I did. There's something there, isn't it? For all of us. And what is abandonment? Yes, someone may have physically abandoned you, but every time your parents didn't have the tools, inner and outer resources, or their own inner healing to be able to be there for you, that's an abandonment. Every time they didn't see, hear, understand you in the way that you needed to be seen, heard, understood, that's an abandonment. So for me, that made me an angry child because I knew I deserved better. For some people, that makes them a sad child because they really, really want to connect and they really, really want to feel that love. And an angry child does the same too, but they're just expressing it differently. For some people, it's a story of which then turns into what I call the sabotage, because which then turns into, okay, people left me, That must mean that's what love is. So let me leave myself. So this process of reparenting yourself is saying over and over and over and over and over again, imperfectly, without expecting to be any different, without expecting like a complete cure or whatever. You keep saying, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for me. I'm here for you, my inner children. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. It's the same thing you do with a toddler who's having who's having a rough time. So you come back, you lower your voice, you sort of speak slower, you create a sense of safety. If they're a child that enjoys touch, you touch. Like if they're tactile, like I am, like I like soft things now. So I give myself soft things. You give yourself or you give that child soft things to hold or to hug with. And then you say, I'm here. Do you want to cry? Let's cry. Do you want to tell me things? Tell me things. Do you want to play? Let's play. So that's the work. That's the opportunity to reconnect. As parents, we know like we cannot be there 100% of the time. We cannot be perfect 100% of the time, but the 101, you can show up again. You can say, I'm choosing to connect. I'm choosing love. That's what this is. I'm choosing love this time in the way that I need it. That's another key, in the way that I need it. Maybe I need to be heard. So let me find ways that people can hear me. Let me start a podcast. Let me find ways that I can offer myself the gift of speech. No one heard me before. I wasn't seen. Let me create these videos, or let me see this friend who I know is going to provide me a safe gaze. I never felt safe. How can I feel safe now? How can I feel safe in my own home? And the home is a great metaphor for your body. How can I feel safe in my body? Oh, these clean, comfortable clothes. They make me feel great. I feel safe in them. Like keeping my home clean and keeping my home in my way of organization. Oh, that makes me feel safe. Giving my body nourishment. Nourishment, which is the same thing as metaphor for emotional, energetic, quantum nourishment. So how can I enjoy my food today? That's the key for people who haven't been breastfed or who haven't been breastfed long enough, by the way, to give themselves chances to enjoy healthy, good food for them. Making your food. Just like your mom made your food through breast milk or whatever. So I'm just going, I forgot where we started again, but
I did the same when you interviewed me. I thought, did I even answer? I don't even think I answered that question. You mentioned the fluffy, the like soft material, and I I really resonated with that because a few months ago the kids gave me this little fluffy blanket, and it's really soft and really fluffy. And every time I'm sitting on the couch or doing my work, I put it on me. And even when I'm lying in bed now, I can't stand anything else on top of me. The first layer has to be that, even before the sheet. And it's really nurturing. There's something about it, and it makes me feel really comforted. And that's really what it is, isn't it? It's being comforted. You're comforting yourself. You're self-soothing, isn't it?
why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you
Mm.
give yourself that chance? I like a heavy weighted blanket these days. Ah, so cozy.
I'm interested in something that you mentioned earlier, where there's inner child healing, and then a part of that also is the ancestral. Yeah, how does the ancestry part, their inner children, is that what you mean? Their inner children are
Yeah.
interwoven into your inner child because it's through your DNA, through the epigenetics? Is that what you mean when you talk about that?
Yeah, and more.
Yeah.
Meaning, the empty space in your DNA is not empty. Yeah. So that's what I meant when I say, the so-called junk DNA. So DNA is only a part of it, though. DNA is crystalline, by the way. It's a liquid crystal, which is how it holds these massive amounts of quantum information. But the rest of our body is crystalline too. Your bones are minerals, your eyes, your hair, everything. Muscles, the plasma of your blood, you have iron in it, crystalline. Anytime you see a crystal, you got to know that they hold massive amounts of energy and information. And each and every crystal in your body is connected to each and every crystal in the multiverse. And crystals hold records of time, what we call linear time, and then what we call quantum time. They connect you to time, which is another way how you can bring about those inner light sparks, even if that inner light never shone in that particular moment in your life. It's there. It's there. And similarly, when your ancestors pass on this makeup, this particular, I call it downloading of your soul into this particular GPS point and time dimension, they also pass on their information. There is this idea of knowledge, and the knowledge is, in certain cases, it's about hiding. It's about hiding your spark for survival. Like survival is a big thing when you think ancestors. So yeah, I see ancestral inner children. They often come up as these ideas you can't justify, these thoughts, these patterns you can't justify. Like, they don't make sense. But there's this protective mechanism that keeps playing over and over. Or it could also come in as I ask for a sensation in your body, and I'm like, how old is that sensation? And people say older than time. So I'm like, okay, that's an ancestral wound right there. The ancestral clouds just carry over. That's the only way to put it. But the ancestral light sparks also carry over. And you have a responsibility being incarnated in this point in this dimension to bring out as many life sparks as you can here in this body.
I love the way you said that because I totally sparked up when you said it. I've got the goosebumps. When you said it, I had this visual image of an ancestor passing on a torch, as in that, the piece of wood with the light, and it symbolized, that they've gone through all of their trauma and all of the stuff they'd gone through in their times. But here's the torch. I carry it onto you. You lucky person. You got both the cloud, but you've also got the spark. And it's the spark within us that's interconnected, like the drop of in the ocean. And the light is all within that, and that is the message at the end of the day, is that we all carry this inner spark and it's all interconnected. I really like that you've brought that through, and that with inner child healing and ancestral healing and all the rest of it, it's about coming back into your own and finding that inner spark and having that lit up.
It's an opportunity. It's a gift. It's a way to bring something alive in you. And the bigger the cloud, the bigger the light. The bigger the cloud, the bigger the light. And it's up to you to see it from that perspective versus saying, another cloud. Like, I don't know what to do with this. Versus, okay, this is here. I'm here. Again, I can be here for me. Even as I move through this, I can be here for me. I can get help to be here for me. And as you move through that, you got to realize there are important moments that are teaching you something. And it's up to you to pay attention. It's up to you to own all of it. You were doing this for you. You were saying towards the beginning, you were like, the ripple effects, like I don't know how far you go. I'll tell you how far they go. They go infinitely. They go everywhere. They go to each and every version of you. They go to each and every ancestor and their versions. Coming online, becoming alive in you means you are actually more connected to life than ever. You get to choose the quality of how you're there in that container of omness, of quantum vibration. And how you're there is going to affect, because you're never alone, how much of the outer support you're able to receive, because you're going to receive the outer support of the ancestors who've come online themselves. Come online meaning they've connected with essential parts of themselves. They accepted the cloud and the light all the same. They rose to a place of love. And that love is always there in you. Yes, so you can get to that in your alone, quiet times. And you can realize that there's an undeniable support around you, undeniable connectedness that is here for you always, always, always.
That's so true, and it's really nice to remember, because sometimes you can feel, especially people that are more newer to the spiritual path or that are going through hard times, that it is a lonely experience and that you can't always connect or feel that you've got that support. But knowing that it's not just the spiritual support of whatever it is you believe in, your angels and guides and all of that, but also your ancestors behind you, kind of like a backup team if you need it. There's a resonance in that. And I think it's coming to the fore more in recent times. With, you mentioned the spiral before, as we go up the spiral of our soul evolution, to know that we've got the support and have that sort of activated, because it's in the knowing where it kind of activates too, because it's through your awareness of it. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing those insights, and especially with your own personal take on it as well, and the quantum aspect, just bringing that in. And I think that will just open up the awareness of a lot of people listening. So I appreciate that. Thank you for coming. Before we go, you had an offer that you would like to share about that connects with the theme that we've spoken about today.
Yes, my website is what we've been talking about. It's at dropofom.com, ADROPOFOM.com. And if you go there, I have quite a few free gifts, but one of them is called Activate the Light of Your Inner Children. And it's a beautiful guided meditation that will take you through making that first connection, and you can keep coming back to it. Connection and nourishment, connection and you saying, I'm here for you. So yeah, enjoy that. And you can also find me at Drop of Om on Instagram, on YouTube, Facebook. So say hi. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Natalia.